Stephen has business for us now, and he's staying with the Charlie Hebdo theme. A magazine, of course, that's been struggling financially before these attacks, Stephen.
Yeah, that's right. Covering the costs of production for Charlie Hebdo had been an issue for some time. Now, since the attacks, there have been huge donations from the likes of Google, as well as practical support offered from other French media organisations. They provided a lifeline for the publication that was devastated by the attacks, as Solange Moujan now explains.
A high price to pay for staying afloat. Just months ago in November, Charlie Hebdo's staff sought €1 million to keep the newspaper alive. They received only €26,000 in donations, and Charlie Hebdo was only selling around half of its 60,000 weekly copies, not enough to break even. Closing the newspaper, which was founded in 1970, seemed like it might become inevitable. Then the January 7th shooting occurred. After the murder of 12 people in the attack, worldwide support began pouring in. Google donated €250,000, The Guardian €128,000, a French Press Editors Association more than €200,000, and the French Culture Ministry has promised €1 million in support. There's even a crowdsourcing campaign, not to mention the nearly 4 million French people who marched Sunday, and the thumbs up from famous faces such as George Clooney and Arnold Schwarzenegger, much to the joy of the paper's surviving staff.
We thank all those who have subscribed, in particular Arnold Schwarzenegger. He counts for at least 10 subscribers. And we would also like to thank George Clooney, who's welcome to subscribe so that all the women at the newspaper will have his address.
Toutes les femmes du journal auront son adresse.
The distributor of this week's 3 million copies won't be charging the paper, and the profits will go to the victims' families. The satirical newspaper now has more than enough to stick around, thanks to an outpouring of support that has become an act of defiance.
Now, it's those subscriptions which will give the most long-term help to Charlie Hebdo. Many organisations and companies here in France have signed up to subscriptions. Just one example is the Public Investment Bank. They've taken 50 subscriptions to Charlie Hebdo. The Italian Embassy has also signed up to subscribe, apparently at the demand of Matteo Renzi.
We're going to talk about something completely different now. We're going to talk about the World Bank, in fact. It's cut its growth forecast for the global economy.
Yeah, that's right. The bank has warned the world has become over-aligned to what it's calling the single-engine recovery in the United States. It's cut its growth forecast for this year from 3.4% to 3%, and for next year from 3.5% to 3.3%. Now, it says that lower oil prices should provide a boost to global growth, but that weak business and consumer confidence might cancel that out. Let's look at the figures in more detail. The World Bank upgraded its forecast for the United States to 3.2%, but downgraded it for both the Eurozone and Russia. Russia seeing the biggest fall from growth of what was originally predicted just 6 months ago of 1.5% to now a contraction of almost 3%.
And that other big story Stephen's been telling us about for the last week or so, the falling price of oil continuing to make waves at the Detroit Auto Show. This is something that we've been discussing for a few days now. The US car industry got a boost from the falling price of petrol, sales up almost 6% last year. As price at the pumps fall, though, car makers are seeing consumers shifting back towards gas guzzlers like SUVs instead of the recent trend towards hybrid and electric cars. The company Tesla has been at the forefront of the electric car movement. Its founder Elon Musk says cheaper petrol is presenting them with a new challenge.
We can't rely on scarcity to drive the price of oil and gas high and have that be an adequate forcing function to move electric. So we have to figure out how to make electric cars themselves compelling without that economic forcing function of high gas prices.
Elon Musk there. Finally, from Stephen, what's happening on the markets?
The European markets all opening down at the start of trading today. Pretty significant falls, it has to be said. That's said to be fears over the global economy, perhaps due to the World Bank report we were just talking about. Things might be helped by comments from Mario Draghi, the ECB president, in the past few minutes. He's been telling a German media that an expansive monetary policy was needed for stability, perhaps a hint of what he might be announcing next week at the policy meeting of the European Central Bank. Oil and gas shares down, as you might imagine. That's hitting things in London pretty badly, and the car maker Peugeot Citroën in Paris, their shares opening down too. That's despite them reporting an increase in sales. China, now the #1 market for the French car maker, sales there up 30% last year. Over in Asia, a pretty similar picture, falls across the board. Japanese investors particularly not impressed with the new budget announced by the government, a record $812 billion budget announced by Shinzo Abe's government, despite the fact that it's cutting borrowing. Borrowers, or investors rather, are not impressed.
Thanks, Stephen. Stephen with business.